Guys, welcome to the Charge It to the Game podcast. We're excited to have you. This is episode 1 of many. We're going to talk sales, life, business, entrepreneurship, mindset, and most importantly, personal development. So if that's something that excites you, if that's something that's important to you, and you take your success and your life seriously, stay tuned, subscribe to the podcast, and let's jump in.
All right, guys, welcome to the first episode of Charge It to the Game, the podcast where, we sit down, we talk about wins, losses, and, just what we got going on. This is episode number 1. We got Dylan Blues, Amaan, Cottar, my partners, my brothers. My name is Misha. Let's dive in. I think this podcast, what we want to do is kind of just, obviously sales is our life. But I think what we want to do here is kind of just, sit down, talk about, whatever it might be, sales, business, personal development, stories, successes, wins and losses. Today's podcast, we're kind of going to just do a little bit of history, one for the history books. It'll be a podcast that we look back on when we're 80 years old. And, so I guess we're just going to talk about like kind of how we started what we're doing now, how we all met each other, how we got to where we're at. And, we'll see where that goes.
Well, what's your first memory of the agency, how all of this actually came up? What comes to your guys' life?
Well, I mean, first off, I think what's really cool about just us and like what we've built is the fact that like we all knew each other well before we even started the agency or even got into sales, I'm super grateful that like, we all grew up together and that we're working together, making money together. Through high school. Obviously, all of us, we went to the same high school together. Dylan, I met you. I was talking to someone the other day. I was talking to a lead, and I was like, yeah, like this guy Dylan, I met him on the basketball team at a tryout in grade 10. Like how crazy is that like we all just kind of met through high school, and 6, 7, 8 years later, it's like here we are shooting a podcast together.
I mean, looking back at it, it almost makes sense because we were always about our hustle. Like you and me with the sneaker reselling, a bunch of the other things, camping out. Dylan's been a serial entrepreneur since he came out the damn womb. So
yeah, we were sleeping outside in downtown Toronto trying to get Jordans. Dylan was scaling e-commerce businesses, taking over the world at 16.
I think what you're saying, like about, that being a really cool thing that we not only do sales together and business together, but we do life together, right? Like, you can make all the money in the world, but if you don't enjoy the process, if you don't enjoy who you're doing with, it's like, yeah, you make all the money, but it's like, are you really living a good life? I think it's really important that the people that you do business with, you can also do life with, right? Like, I don't, go to meetings or fly to Miami or do this and go to, someone's event and this and that with people who I wouldn't sit at the dinner table with, like, I think that's one of the coolest parts about what we do and why we love it so much. And, when sales gets tough, and it does get tough, it does get lonely, it does get difficult, we have each other to kind of like, work off of it and bounce positive energy off.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. Now let's kind of like take a step back, before we talk about how we got into this space, like, let's give people a little bit of context. I think it's really easy to kind of get caught up in like the day-to-day of being a remote closer and running the agency and selling for, all these big people. But really, like, reality is that we didn't start like that. We started, you guys working jobs. I started, I was always entrepreneurial. I started doing like door-to-door sales and, window cleaning and shit. So it's like, let's give people kind of like a backstory of what we did before and how we found the space and how we transitioned. Because really, guys, when we started, we were like in the same shoes that you were, right? I know that many of you guys watch this and you look up to us and all this sort of stuff, but like 6, 7 years ago, we were where you are today. And I think that's really important not to forget. So let's talk about that. Amaan, tell us a bit about kind of where you were, before this whole thing came into your life.
Where wasn't I? That's the real question. I mean, like for me, I come from an immigrant background. So growing up, it's like we weren't struggling per se. Like had a roof over my head. My parents did everything they could to, create a great life for me and my siblings. But when it came to like buying those extra things, buying the shoes, buying the clothes, going out, they would never really give me money for that. So from a young age, it was always like, okay, well, I got to start making money. And this, I remember my first job being, before we even talk about that, I would be knocking around doors. I know I did this with Misha and I did this with a couple other buddies. Like I would go out shoveling fucking snow in minus 50-degree weather just so I could collect an extra couple bucks. But that is really what instilled the work ethic into me, I believe. And then I just translated that into job, job after job after job. My first job, actually, funny story, I was flipping a damn sign on the road outside of Little Caesars. And it's like doing that just to be able to make 10, 15 bucks an hour. In the moment, yeah, it sucked. But looking back at it, it's like, well, if I can do that, doing 30 dials an hour, doing 50 dials an hour, it's nothing. It's a piece of cake.
And it just makes you like so much more grateful too, you know, like,
So much.
like just the fact that like you worked the shit jobs outside in the freaking snow, flipping around a sign, you know, like I was washing dishes for a long time. You know, I remember being at like a freaking dusty ass like call center when I was like 15, just on a you know, auto dialer in this crammed ass room. And it's like, it's important because it gives you perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
But no, because you were doing, I remember you were doing the flipping, then you started working at McDonald's.
Yeah. Both.
Did you do any sales while you were in like before this?
No sales experience at all, really.
Well, actually, that's not true because we were talking about this recently. Me and Amaan, where we like first like kind of got close was through buying and selling like shoes, right? It was like we were both working like our little part-time jobs, literally just to be able to afford like Jordans. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think we're actually talking about this the other day, Dylan. Like what we were doing back then was like in the Facebook marketplace, you know, messaging people, you know, going back and forth, doing meetups, negotiating, right? Putting up like postings of shoes to like buy and sell, right? Which like that was super valuable for just like learning sales and like learning like, hey, like if I go and find a deal, I can go make money, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's probably why like we really got into sales the way that we did. We really like gelled with it really early, you know?
Oh, that taught me personally a lot about sales, but that actually brings up a memory. I remember like, I guess my first ever sales training was actually from my McDonald's manager. I was working in the drive-thru. Like, okay, guys, today we're really going to focus on upselling. So every time somebody just comes in for a coffee, ask them if they want a muffin or a cookie. It's like, hey, would you like a muffin or a cookie with that? Probably 90% of people said yes. And it just showed you like the power of asking people.
90% of people said yes?
It was a good amount because it was like an extra 40, 50 cents. If you're buying a coffee for $1.50, $2, whatever it was at the time, a couple of years back, extra 50 cents for a muffin, bucket.
Easy upsell.
Easy upsells. Just got to ask people for the close.
Imagine if you were on the drive-thru, like knowing what you know now.
People would be eating fucking dinner for breakfast.
It would be like checking out for like $500, $1,000, stock up their fridge for the month of leftovers.
Hey, Amaan, my order's getting kind of expensive. You guys do like refunds, 30-day money back guarantees?
Have a payment plan?
I gotta think about this one.
No, that's funny. But through, I guess, carrying on, like through like the different jobs, McDonald's, all the different like restaurant serving jobs, even sneaker flipping, like this opportunity, like it kind of just fell into my lap personally, you know, just through knowing Dylan, growing up in the same neighborhood, going to the same high school. You know, I was never close with Dylan at that time, but I always knew of him and like what he was doing. And you probably have the same memory, Misha. We both see Dylan hand a massive wad of cash to one of his sales reps at the time in a damn Gucci bag. And like looking back, okay, does it come off maybe a little douchey? Maybe not. But that was like, whoa.
It's good marketing, man.
I was gonna say good marketing.
It's good marketing. Like
Great marketing.
At the end of the day, the reason we've done so well here is, we've done really well in sales, but it's also marketing, you know? And I think that a lot of people kind of forget that, right? It's marketing at the end of the day, right? Like everything. The reason you guys are here wasn't sales, you know, it was marketing, right? And, you know, big picture, if you're really thinking about sales process, that's how it works. Marketing gets you leads in the door, sales converts them, right? So, and really it's like I have that attitude where it's like everything in life is sales and marketing. And I realized that early, and fuck, if it meant giving a sales guy his paycheck for a month in the form of cash in 20s wrapped up in a stack in a Gucci bag, that's what had to be done to bring in the leads. And you guys were the leads, and now we're here. We made it this far, right?
A couple of years later, here we are.
Yeah. I think, it's interesting, Amaan, when you say the opportunity kind of fell into your lap, I think the opportunity falls into people's laps when they earn it, right? So it's like, it's not a coincidence that it was just there for you, right? Like, you didn't have to pay attention to the fact that I was, hustling at 16 or 17 years old, but you did because you were hustling too.
Right.
And that energy kind of reciprocates. And because of that, you noticed what I was doing. You noticed the stories on, Snapchat, Instagram, whatever. And that's kind of how it came about, right? I think, just looking back at everything I've done, there's a quote that really well describes kind of I hate calling it a career, but call it a career, my career today. And what that quote is the harder I work, the luckier I seem to get. And I think that's kind of how you came in on, obviously, a smaller scale, right? But it's like, bro, you guys were working hard, right? Doing whatever you were doing, flipping shoes, maybe some other not so legal shit that we're not going to discuss, but like, you guys were hustling and trying to make your way. And that's why, whatever it was happened, and we connected, and that's it, and the rest is history, right? So it's like, anyway, I think that's a whole other topic. Good podcast episode for us to do. It's like, the harder you work, the luckier you fucking get, right? Yeah. Opportunities don't just pop up out of nowhere. You work your way to be in the right spot at the right time to have those opportunities, right?
1,000%.
But before I talk about like how the agency and all that started, Misha, why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory? We heard from Amaan.
Yeah. And like, even with the opportunity too, it's like, you got to be able to like recognize an opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think the reason, but because I remember because obviously we did, even at first when we were doing door-to-door window cleaning, right? Like, just, either you explained it to me or someone explained it to me, like, hey, like, if you knock on someone's door within 5 minutes, you can make $300, or you can close a $300 sale and make $50, and if you walk around a couple times, you can work for 3 hours, you can make $1,000, and it's like, that came after years of grinding and like walking in freaking cold ass weather and hopping on a bus and taking a transfer while my toes are freezing off. And doing that every day just to make a couple $100 a month. It's like, when I find out, all I have to do is just knock on a door and ask for money and I can make something. Yeah. It's like, even for me, like, I wasn't, even when I did knock on the doors, like, I wasn't comfortable doing it. I didn't like doing it, but I was like, I recognized the opportunity. And like, even before we started, remote sales and what we do now, like, I spent that whole 6 month, the first semester, trying to figure out. So we were going to all the campouts and all the meetups for the Jordans, the Travises, or the Yeezys, whatever. I started trying to figure out how to bought those shoes, right? And I was doing this whole setup. I bought this software. I'm spending hundreds of dollars on proxies and servers to get different IP addresses that would go and like check out for a shoe. I would wake up at 6 a.m. because it's like a Pacific time drop or whatever, right, just to, if I cop one Yeezy, then maybe I'll make like a $250 flip on that, right? And then when I, after doing that and like trying to figure it out and like never really working, when I find out, they're like, hey, you can connect yourself to business owners that are already generating leads, that already have a product that's super valuable. You just take the sales calls and you can make hundreds of dollars on a 30-minute phone call.
No brainer. Yeah,
it's just like, yeah, like, let's go, let's do it, So yeah, I mean, it's been cool. I mean, I think it was because even like at the start too, there's like recognizing the opportunity, there's seizing the opportunity, but then there's following through on it, right? Sure. And that's a different story. It's like, I remember when we started, again, right? Like we hadn't accomplished anything. We hadn't seen any results. I think so many people out there, they're like entitled and they want to see something right away. And, I need to make X amount of return. Otherwise they get lazy. We've seen that happen with so many people. We were doing And even it's funny now because we work with people and help people get into the space. It's funny now because when I started, I went back to school, right, in the other city,
Yeah.
out in Waterloo. I bought a Samsung S5 off Kijiji for $50, like cracked up.
I remember that.
Went down to Walmart to get a $20 a month public mobile subscription to get
Rapper over here.
to get unlimited US call and text. And I was sharing this phone and this SIM card with 2 other people.
Yeah.
And what we were doing was like calling up leads, right? Like outbound, right? Not even inbound at the time, I don't think. Yeah, I think again, like it's just cool how we kind of started there. Saw a bit of progress, followed through, and just kept grinding, right? Like even on the days when it's a 0 day, even on the days where you're frustrated, and like I see Amaan crushing it and putting up sales, and like I'm feeling down on myself. Why isn't it not working out for me? Like always just being stubborn and saying, hey, if it's working for you, like why can't it work for me?
Mm-hmm.
And just being stubborn with it. And I think that phase was really important. Because at the time, like I was just looking for a way out because I was in business school and I just didn't like it. And, I wouldn't try. Like I would just study for the last 3 weeks before an exam. Besides from that, I wasn't even going to school, And yeah, like it was cool because when all of that was going on, that was like, 6 months before the world shut down, right? Before COVID happened, right? And then when it did happen, that's kind of when everything took off, right? When they sent everybody home. I think, Dylan, you already dropped out of school.
Yeah.
Right? You dropped out of the
Stopped
first
showing up.
semester.
I dropped out after first semester, officially.
Yeah.
Unofficially, it was like a couple weeks in.
Yeah. Yeah. And then when like COVID hit, it was perfect because it's like at that point we already had like a nice like 6 months under our belt of hustling the phones, closing deals, making money. We saw that it worked. We liked it. There was that competitive fire. The clients are scaling. Clients are putting more money into ads, more leads are coming in. And then, yeah, like everything obviously in Toronto, like basically just shut down. They sent everybody home for school. I just cheated on all my exams. Although I thought it went through my head, like, is that bad to say on a podcast? But like, those professors, that thing.
What are they going to do?
Honestly, though, I really feel like, on a side note, like, especially with school, like, there's going to be a time, and we'll probably be the ones to innovate it and implement it, but they're going to end up teaching sales in schools.
Yeah, man.
Like,
Yeah.
or at least the successful schools.
They're gonna be like calling you up, Amaan, like trying to get you to speak for like a sales program, and then they won't be able to afford your speaking fee. No, I think the COVID shutdown, perfect timing, opportunity meets preparation meets opportunity. That's exactly what it was. We went all in. I was doing 12 hours a day, back-to-back calls, literally just out of my bedroom, nonstop, just pacing around my room. And then, yeah, I think that summer was really cool. That summer was dope. Do you talk about from your standpoint, man? Because I think that was big. And I've asked you about this before, like going from just a little, you're doing sales. Okay, you bring on a couple people to do some sales with you. You get the office. All of a sudden, we have a team of, 20 people that summer in the office doing sales. Like what was going through your head at the time?
I mean, for those of you who don't know, like I was always kind of hustling. First thing I did was services. I knew there's money to make in home services. I know people take care of their homes and they spend money on their homes and they want their homes to look good. So, I started doing it, window cleaning and landscaping. Landscaping, I didn't do any of the jobs. I outsourced all of it. Window cleaning, I did the jobs myself, and then I hired a couple, cleaners, made decent money doing that. It was all right. Then I jumped into e-commerce when hoverboards were big. I started by selling them not even online. It was just like Rib Fest and all sorts of festivals and whatnot. Then I saved up enough money where I could risk a little bit, put some money into advertising, Google ads, stuff like that. And anyway, long story short, did well with that until everything came crashing down. And then at that point, I was like, well, let me kind of tap into my skill set. What am I skilled at? And e-commerce was good. Like, I knew a little bit of marketing, but really where I knew I had an edge in was sales.
Were you
right?
what made you feel like you had an edge in sales at that point?
Man, it's like, look, I know there's all sorts of all different types of sales, but bro, it doesn't get harder than knocking on a door and getting fucking rejected over and over and over again and getting the door slammed in your face. So I'm like, look, if I can sit there and get people to just wait before they shut the door in your face
Yeah.
and sell them some shit for a few $100, I could do anything, really, you know? I think part of it was like, you know, it was coming from an ego standpoint because it was like I was crushing it. I was, you know, I was doing well at 16, 17 old, but 16 or 17 years old. But I'm glad I had that ego then, because otherwise I would have never tapped back into what I realized was working for me. Right. So, you know, I knew sales was my shit. Right. That's what I kind of knew. And I recognized that early, and I recognized the opportunity, like you were saying earlier. So after, you know, everything came crashing down with e-com and selling hoverboards, I saw there's a trend with online education all the time. People being like, hey, go watch my free training or watch my webinar, or go buy my ebook and all this shit. And I knew these people were making money. I had no idea how much they were making, but I knew they're making money. So I reached out to this one I reached out to a few influencers, right? Asked them, hey, can I sell for you? Can I sell this? You know, most of them didn't even respond. And if they did, it was always negative until I reached out. I'm like, okay, maybe I'm going for the big fish a little bit too early, right? I have like 200 followers on Instagram. Nobody knows me. I have this like stupid mirror selfie like we do at like 15, 16 years old, thinking we're the shit. As my profile picture, I'm like, hey, let me reach out to somebody small, right? So I reached out to this one guy. I think he had like 5,000 followers on Instagram. I saw a couple of his ads running e-commerce coaching programs. So I hit him up. Long story short, convinced him to let me sell. First month, I make a good amount of money. It was over 10 grand. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was a good amount. And I do that. I keep doing it. I do it. And it's like consistent month over month, and it's only growing from there. And we got to a point where I was closing so many deals that there was enough cash coming into the business where this guy that I was selling for had plenty of money to reinvest. So we started reinvesting in ads. We had more leads that I could handle myself. And he was going to look to hire another guy and ask me to train that person, all this stuff. I'm like, no, let me find the guy. He'll work under me. I'll make a cut on his sales. I'll train him, I'll manage him, I'll do all that. And, you know, my first thought was not go hire somebody off Indeed. It was, one of my boys, you know? Mm-hmm. So I hit up a couple of my buddies, a couple friends. Sales is not for these guys. I love them. I love my friends, but sales is not their shit. But I took my calls, transcribed them, printed it out. I'm like, here's your script, guys. Read it word for word, you know? And, you know, through the process, obviously, I learned a lot more about sales. It's not about reading a script, but at the time, it was just like easy here, duplicate it, read it, say whatever I say. And they did. And, you know, they closed a couple of deals, but it was not to the level where anywhere near my level. So I realized, okay, I got to take this hiring thing a little bit more seriously. And, you know, at the time, Misha, you were doing door-to-door sales with me. You know, I kind of realized, okay, this isn't going to work. I need some real sales guys. Was I in a position to hire people, put them on salary? Definitely not. So, you know, I reached out to a couple people that, you know, did door-to-door with me and a couple other things that I knew could sell. You know, did that, grinded, did fairly well. And we were in just growth mode, expansion. And I needed to find salespeople that will work on commission only, which is harder to do than most people think. So that's when we went Gucci bag mode. That's when I paid that sales guy a bunch of cash in a Gucci bag. He put it on his Instagram and Snapchat story. I put it, and then DMs were exploding. Yo, can I work for you, right? And that's really when the whole sales training thing started. At that point, I knew, like, okay, I got to take this seriously. It's not just a script. I got to teach them what is sales, the psychology, different types of prospects. We deal with this in this industry because it's not the same as door to door. And that's when I really started training. And, you know, over the years, obviously, training got better and better and better. But that's when I really took the training piece seriously. And I mean, look at you guys, it did fairly well. Okay. Now, Mish, to your question, it's like, when did I transition from, we were at the time selling at a Starbucks to, where we are today? I'll tell you, the biggest transition was when things kind of clicked for me is like, I was doing really well. I was making a lot of money. Had some of my sales guys making money. We had a sales guy that was selling for us who, had responsibilities, had a kid on the way. And at that point, we already started kind of making money, and I was in a position to afford rent in an office. And, but I wasn't really at the place where I'm like, okay, now we're going to scale big. It was just like cash coming in. And that was the only thought process. And then when we hired Josh, and, he told me he has a baby on the way. And at the time I was still in, first year, it was still before I dropped out, and realized like, hey, listen, we're no longer just making cash for ourselves. We got people to take care of. We have responsibilities. There's people that rely on us to put fucking food on the table. That realization, that's when it clicked for me. And I'm like, oh shit. All right, we got to take this a lot more seriously now. Because at the time, it's like, you don't think about that as a, 19-year-old, 18-year-old maybe? Like, money's good. You're making cash, stacking up, living carefree. And then it's like, you think about that, and I'm like, oh shit, that was a wake-up call. And from then, we just started taking things a lot more seriously and working on our craft, getting really fucking good, right, making sure sales guys are making a lot of money and not just, me and us. And that's when really things kind of went from like, a few lone wolves working together to, all right, now we're building a real business and a real company.
Would you say like that's where you adopted that impact over income sort of mindset and that people over profit mindset, or knowing that other people had responsibilities that, you kind of felt almost like an internal obligation to help them out with?
Yeah, I mean, look, like I was making plenty of money at the time. Like I was making enough money to buy a Rolex, making enough money to buy an AP, making enough money to buy a 7 Series, 750 Li, which blew up on me, enough to buy an Audi RS7. It's like, what else do you care about as a fucking 19-year-old,
Good point.
Going to Harbor 60, which is like one of the nicest restaurants in Toronto at like 19. I'm like, I didn't give a fuck about anything else. Like I was making enough to live that life and be happy and like take care of, my friends at restaurants, and you guys obviously at restaurants. That's all I cared about. Anything on top was nice, but it's like, making sure that everybody eats, not just at the restaurant. That was fucking dope.
Yeah, I mean, we were doing like that summer COVID, we were doing like $1 million months, easy.
Easily.
Specifically, just to clarify, in case the CRA is watching this, in sales for our clients, not us personally. Just to be clear.
Yeah, but no, it was that was crazy. That was honestly so much fun because it was like every single day we had a massive team, 20 people in the office. Everyone's in here by 9 a.m. Everyone already has a Red Bull in them by 9 a.m. We all have backed out calendars, 10 to 10.
Insane.
On top of the backed out calendars, we have 100 leads in the sheet. We spent a bunch of money, and it's like, I remember that was honestly competition back then was crazy because all of us were all just trying to like prove something to each other and like who's better than who and who can put up more sales than who. And no, that was so fun because it was just like crazy work, putting up crazy numbers every single day, 10, 20, 30K up on the board as a team. And then
that was the best time. Like, honestly, as a business owner, people are always like, oh, well, if you could go back and just do sales, or like, why, like you're a business owner now, but you're teaching sales. Yeah, it's the best like time that I've had through these like 5-6 years of building this was then, was showing up 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. or 10 p.m., 26 book calls was the number, back to back, every half-hour slot, in my calendar, booked up, and dialing leads. It's like I didn't have.
Now that I think about it, that's one of my kinks. Back to calendar, 26 books.
But it's like like big picture. It's like, man, life was so easy then, right? I didn't have people on payroll. right? My rent was significantly lower than it is now. I didn't have to worry about legal or accounting or marketing or all the shit that I'm responsible for now. I didn't have that. I just came, looked at my calendar. I texted all the leads the night before, opened up my calendar or opened up my day, team meeting, everyone role play half an hour, get your energy up, boys, coffee, Red Bull, whatever the fuck you need, and just dial leads. And I'm making, not gonna say the number, but fucking doing well without a care in the world, like shit was easy, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, now it's like, I have all this responsibility, which is cool. But if I could kind of go back to that, I'd rather be making less money, but live that life and just fucking smile and dial than have all the weight that I have on my shoulders now. I love it. I embrace it. Don't get me wrong. But for like 99.9999% of people, that's a way better. You don't want to be making, you don't need to be making more than, 15, 20 grand a month to live a beautiful, excellent, amazing life.
It was good. And especially just doing it as a team. Competition, all of us, getting better, finding ourselves. That's also that summer. That was kind of, enough for me. Dropped out. No, Amaan, you dropped out too around that time, like July 2020.
Didn't think twice about it.
Yeah, I think not long after that, we started working with Ty, which was cool. Started growing the agency. I know. Me and Amaan, we kind of just like naturally, like we would start running a lot of the morning trainings, just stepping up, just being like natural leaders. There's this big ass team, and we gotta have a meeting every single day. We started doing those, and like naturally, we kind of took on more of a leadership role. And I think that probably comes from like the sports background too. It's just like wanting to step up and think of it as a team sport.
I agree, and I'd add something to that too, because like like especially in this whole like info product space or just business in general, like to spend more money on marketing, you need to make more money. And it's like when there are bottom feeders that aren't producing, that's affecting the amount of book calls you, even though you're a top producer, are getting access to. So it was always like, hey, let's not only help them out so that they can make more money, but it's also like, let's help them out so that the team can make more money, the business can make more money, and a rising tide lifts all boats.
It's crazy how many people forget about that. Like some people message me, after they start selling for coach this and coach that, and they're like, yo, I'm not getting enough leads and this and that. I'm like, hey, cool. How much you close this month? They're like, oh, I close like, I don't know, 15 grand or 20 grand. I'm like, how many calls do you have? They're like, whatever the number is. I'm like, so your earnings per call is like $150. I'm like, do you know how expensive it is to get a booked call on somebody's calendar? You're probably not even making the guy money and you're sitting here bitching about lead flow. Like, get good, good, right? I think this is a topic for a whole other, episode, but the pool of competition right now is so embarrassingly weak. Like there are so many people who got like sold this pipe dream of like remote closing, which is a great opportunity, but they got sold this idea that you can make a ton of money without having any skill by just being on this fucking golden opportunity, which is complete bullshit.
Working 2 hours a day.
Yeah. Like fucking all this nonsense, right? It's like, yes, you can work remote. Yes, you can work part-time, but you got to be fucking good. And a lot of people forget that. They think, oh, my golden ticket is placement. It's the vehicle. And yes, the vehicle is important, but man, so many people forget about the fact that you got to get good and come in it with this like sense of entitlement. It's fucking crazy.
And we've seen top producers turn nothing into something like countless times, like just calling old leads, redialing.
I mean, fuck, I've done it. Remember, like we've had so many phases where you guys, or not you guys, but others in the agency were like, oh, leads this or leads that. I'm like, give me the fucking lead sheet. Give me the phone. Give me the lead sheet dial. I'm like, dial. But how often is it, guys, like you guys remember, it's like, man, my first, second, or third conversation I would close. Like, is that a coincidence? But it's like, look, if it happened one time, say, fine, call it a coincidence. But how many times has it been like, oh, you're about leads? Give me the phone. I'll call him.
It's got to be like that, though. And like, I'm really grateful that like you led by example. You were in the trenches doing that. because like now like the standards across the agency has just naturally risen.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? What do you guys think is because obviously we've worked with so many different. We've had so many people in our agency, in our office, in-house, working side by side, probably like hundreds at this point, easily. You know, that came from the start. Obviously, you know, us three, we're, you know, basically been there since the beginning, but we've seen a lot of people come, seen a lot of people go, seen some people rise to the top, some people, you know, fall off after being on the top. What do you think are some of the things that separate the guys, the top producers versus, you know, the guys who fizzle out and don't do much?
A lot of topics today where we're kind of bringing stuff up, and I'm like, man, this could be a whole separate episode.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think this is an important one, and we will have another episode. But I think one thing that we gotta, that I recognize not only in sales and top producers in sales, but top producers in the world, period, right? Let's talk about our agency a little bit and what we do first to give people some context.
Yeah.
You know, we keep saying the word agency. I think some people don't even know what we do. What our agency does is build outsourced sales teams for online coaches, consultants, and high-level entrepreneurs. So people who sell online training, online coaching programs, and don't want to or don't have the time to build a sales team in-house, they come to us and say, hey, Dylan, can we give you our entire sales process? Can you call all of our leads, all our book calls, do the outbound dialing, the book calls, everything? We take it on and we charge them a performance fee, which is in the form of commissions. And then internally, we build their sales team. We have a manager who manages or multiple account. We outbound all the leads that come into their sales process, so on and so forth. And we do this for a lot of big names. Misha mentioned Ty Lopez earlier. He's one of our clients. And a lot of big names that you guys, I'm sure, have seen before in pretty much every vertical: e-commerce, fitness, SMMA, real estate, Airbnb, pretty much every kind of vertical you could think of. So, through that process, we had the opportunity to work with some of the highest level entrepreneurs that have made tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. And what I see common between those people and the top producers in sales is the highest level people in the world are very tense. They have very high expectations. They have very high expectations of themselves. They have a non-negotiable code of conduct. They show up every day, same fucking time. They're very, very disciplined people. You will not find Eric Spofford, who's one of our clients, out partying in Miami. I'll bet my entire bank account it will not happen. You will not find him drinking. It just won't happen. You won't find Ty Lopez smoking even. I think he drinks a little bit, but not like socially, just very, very rarely. He'll have a drink, for example. But man, these people have such high standards for us, for themselves. I've kind of thought about it. Isn't it pretty crazy how the people who have the most money, it's not crazy at all, actually, if you think about it, but it's just funny. It's interesting. The people who we worked with, who have the most money and don't even need to be coaching. Like Eric does not need to be coaching. The guy's got so much money, and so does Ty and all these other people. How come those people have the highest expectation of us when they needed the least?
How come those people have the highest expectation of us
when they need the money the least? It's just how they fucking operate.
Yeah, it's just how they are.
They're obsessed. They're obsessed with results. They're obsessed with achievement.
So what you're saying is I mean, it's really standards, right? Like understanding, like holding yourself to a higher standard 100%. Than everybody else.
Yeah.
And I think part of that too, especially when it comes to being a top producer, like being a 1% of the 1% type of person, it's like you have to see yourself in a completely different light.
1,000%.
You have to consciously hold yourself to a higher standard than every other person. And I think most people,
that translates to sales people.
And I think that most people is like you look at the people around you. Oh, like my boy's like he's smoking weed every day and like he's doing pretty good. So like that person do the same thing. Or like this guy's not in the gym and working out. So I don't really need to do the same thing. A lot of people compare themselves to the people around them, and then they use that as an excuse to not hold themselves to a higher standard.
Sure.
That's interesting.
Yeah, we'll have a whole other episode. But look, think about the client. You actually manage this client. It does well, but it's not anywhere near where some of our clients do. That guy's got nowhere near the amount of money that, you know, other clients of ours have, right? How come he's the least involved, right? He just doesn't take it nearly as seriously as other people do, even though those other people don't need the money, right? So it's like top performers hold themselves to higher standard, higher level of accountability, high level of excellence. And they're so competitive. Like, remember you guys were saying how competitive it was? Man, these guys are fucking there to kill, even though they don't need it, right? So I think that directly we see the same thing with salespeople. The sales guy who comes in being like, oh, you know, my goal is this amount for the day, and my goal is this, and he sees other guys beside him out closing, and he's like, hey, high five. That guy will never outproduce the person who's like, man, I'm on close one more deal than me. Fuck that. I'm staying another hour. I'm out closing this guy. I don't care what it takes. I'll stay here till fucking midnight.
Honestly, that like always motivated me more than the money.
Oh,
Like the money, I'm not even thinking. Like,
Money always flows.
Yeah.
You guys recognize that early.
yeah, exactly. And it's like always like, you know, you're looking at the leaderboard. It's like, where am I at on the leaderboard? And like, even if I'm first, it's like, what's the distance between me and second?
Yeah.
You know, it's not really counting the commissions, but it's counting, you know, where am I at? And like, that's why I'm so grateful for you, Amaan, because me and you have been going like head to head for half a fucking decade now.
It's crazy when you put it that way. Half a decade. Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. But yeah.
That's so funny that you bring that up, actually, like to add to that, and you'll probably be able to share so many insights as well. Like there were like a couple guys who would always like, you know, be in that top spot, and then we'd always be competing for it. And that's like when someone left at like 6 or 7 one day, they're like, you're leaving at 7?
Yeah.
Oh, you got nothing on me for this month, boy. That was a great time.
Yeah, and then there's, I mean, and then there's a lot of people who will have the top spot, but then they'll start slipping, they'll start slacking off. But then what happens is they start making like coming up with excuses or reasons, right? Or like, oh, they got this going on or that going on, or and when we even see people who would like just stop trying to use that as an excuse as to why they're not on top.
Yeah.
Just crazy. But anyways, yeah, I mean, shit. I think, you know, just to kind of bring the story back to the present.
You guys have no idea. I will literally miss like 20 minutes or 30 minutes on my phone, and I'll end up with like fucking 40 notifications. It's wild.
Yeah, I mean, like what? At that point, you know, me and you took on more of a leadership role, especially. D, you were doing a lot of work with these clients behind the scenes, making these coaches crazy about some money, dialing in their funnels, dialing in everything they're doing with their ads.
Yeah.
Dylan's the most behind the scenes guy in the world, but the most well-connected guy in the world, at least especially when it comes to our space, which is dope. That's a whole nother, you know, conversation. But yeah, D, you were holding it down on that side of things. You know, me and Amaan we're learning a lot of skills, you know, doing our best to get better every day, you know, step into the leaders that we are now. We started taking on a lot more clients. We started selling in a lot more industries, taking on more responsibility. What do you guys have to say about that era? Growing the agency, expanding, moving horizontally.
I say this as feedback to sales guys. If you're not moving the needle forward, you're moving it backward. And it's the same thing in business. You know, if you're not learning every day, if you're not growing every day, and it doesn't have to be growth as in, you know, hiring people or financial growth, but, you know, even like learning, right? I'm reading books every day. I'm learning every day. I'm watching YouTube videos on, you know, relevant stuff every day. And that all contributes, right? So it's like, the moment you get complacent, it's done. You've lost. It's over. There's going to be someone out there who doesn't stop. And, you know, I recognize that very quickly. I remember times in our agency when things were good and we would, you know, take the gas off the pedal just a little bit. And the result it had was massive. The contraction it had was huge. So now it's like, man, every day trying to grow, trying to get better, trying to develop, and always be expansion, right? And now the question's like, you know, that's kind of a bit about where we started, where we are. It's like, let's talk about where we're going. I think that's even more exciting. you think about where we're at, it's like, fuck, I look at it, it's like a tiny percentage of where we're going. It's like, man, we're really just getting started.
I think where we're going now, it's like it builds off of that, pillar of impact over income, especially with closers now, the agency, like just making it more available for people to actually be in a position of success, have access to top tier sales training, best sales training in the world, and allow them to reach their goals. Especially with closers now, the agency, content, from at least my takeaways from all of that, it's like give. And people will give back, unconditionally because they saw that you led with value, you led with, good intentions.
I think that's big. It's like, yeah, agency's going to keep growing. We're going to keep taking on more clients. I think really we're going to transform the way the online education and info product space works. That's like without a doubt. I think we've already had a big impact, especially from a sales front. But I think that, as we take on more clients and the new partnerships and stuff like that we're doing, it's only going to get bigger. But I mean, look, at the end of the day, the reason I'm where I am today and you guys are where you are at today is because of sales, right? It's not because of, any of the other stuff. It's because of sales. Sales changed our life. And I think, sales is the most beautiful career. It's the most forgiving career. It doesn't care about your background. It doesn't care about your experience. It doesn't care about your degree. All of us here are dropouts. If you can perform and you can effectively communicate and bring a company, an influencer, whatever it is, more money, they will gladly reward you for it, right? And, sales, communication in general is like one of the most important, actually the most important skill in the world. So not only does it give you an opportunity to be in the best career, it gives you a way to really live a better and more meaningful life, right? And I think with what we're doing with our sales training and closers now, finding opportunities and salespeople and merging the two, I think the impact we're going to have is only going to be more massive, and the money always comes. Yeah. The bigger problems you solve, the more money you get paid, right? And we're solving, one of the biggest problems salespeople have. It's finding the right opportunities and really getting good at high level effective communication.
Yeah, I think someone asked me the other day on a call. They were like, "Yeah, Misha, like what are you trying to improve? Like, what's like your biggest like ROI?" So I was telling everyone, I was like, "Yo, like figure out like what type of buyers are you struggling with? Look at the ones who are basically the highest quality leads, and you should be focusing on getting great at them, right? Like look at your schedule, look at what you're doing every single day, figure out what are the highest ROI activities." And dial in on those things, right? And someone asked me, they were like, "Yo, Misha, like, what do you think is the highest ROI activity for you?" And I think like especially over the last like 2 years, especially, it's always like how can we impact more? Like how can we give more? How can we help more people succeed? Because and even with that, it's like I have to learn new skills to help people do that. Like I have to learn how to do content. I have to learn how to run 8 freaking trainings every single week and come up with new ideas and speak and then come up with, trainings and presentations and stay consistent. I have to be learning new things, reading new books. And it's like, I do all these different things for the sole purpose of like, how can I like give more value? Because, obviously when you create value, it comes back to you. Right. So yeah, it's cool, man. It's cool what we're doing, because in sales, it's like, you think it's like people think sales is like you're taking from somebody, right? Like you got to close somebody. You got to take, this is a weird transactional idea when it comes to sales that a lot of people, have the misconception about. But it's really give. It's like you got to hop on a call and like give something to somebody. You got to give value to them. You got to, so someone needs to be better off after they speak to you, and
you get rewarded for that. I mean,
yeah.
Look, the reality is that it's not a misconception. It is a reality.
Yeah.
Right? Because most salespeople suck. Most salespeople come on the call and all they care about is selling. Mm-hmm. They don't care about the transformation somebody has to make. And frankly, first off, those salespeople never crush it, because sales is not a me versus you. It's us versus whatever the problem is. Right? So most salespeople just don't get paid as much as they want to because they're only there to make their commission. But number two, they that's exactly the reputation they give sales. They give salespeople this reputation of being sleazy and scummy, which a lot of them are, but that's not what it truly is, especially if you want to succeed.
Kind of goes back to that thing about standards. Like, especially now us being in this space, like we speak to a lot of, different types of people, people in sales, people not in sales, and the people who are, car sales and like real estate, for example, especially 2020, 2021, when the money printers were on, everybody was doing well. It's so funny how those guys that don't do well, how they blame the market
Yeah.
instead of themselves. But then when the market is good, they take all the ownership themselves instead of actually
It's so,
crediting it to the
yeah,
market.
it's so easy to make, like anybody can make money in sales in a good economy. What happens when shit hits the fan? What happens when people have a little bit less money? What happens when people have, pandemics to worry about and, they're being fed all this stuff telling them, oh, this, oh, that, right? Like what happens then? Right? So anybody can make money in a booming economy. Like fucking congrats. You took money from somebody who was giving it to you, like good job.
Practically.
Right. Yeah. So, big picture, I think like that's where we're going. We want to change the name of sales, right? We don't want to, we want to change the way people perceive salespeople too, right? It's not about being slimy and scummy. It's about giving people value, helping people come to certain realizations and overcome limiting beliefs, make real change for them, for their family, for their lives. That's what we're here to do.
Relationships are the new currency.
100%. Anyway, I think we can wrap up on that. We can sit here for hours and days and weeks, frankly, and, keep talking. But I think for episode 1, I think that sums it up. A little bit about where we started, a little bit about where we're at, tiny bit about where we're going.
Stay tuned for the journey.
Stay tuned.
Join us.
Join us, subscribe, hit the like, hit the comment button, hit the subscribe button. Guys, we have a couple episodes that we've planned out, but at the end of the day, sales is about giving. It's not about taking. So you tell us what you want so that we can give it to you. Okay, comment below. Let us know what you want to see, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.
Cheers.